Yo, yo, yo! What's good? So we are back with another Jujutsu Kaisen video, and for this video, there's actually been a lot of hype and rumors and speculation, all that going on within the JJK community if you've, not been living on the rock the past month or so. Obviously, fans of a certain character have been pretty upset for the past 2 weeks, but it's all good. It's all been good. Your boy's been reveling in the stew of disapproval, so I'm chilling. But for today's video, I want to take a second and break down a specific technique that was used. I've been actually seeing a lot of discourse and confusion going on about what happened, and I'm trying to be vague in this first 10 seconds or here or so. So just real quick, if you are not caught up with the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, please click off this video. But also, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Now, for the real intro. For today's video, I want to take a second and break down Sukuna's game-breaking attack on how he killed Gojo.
New op pack in the air, this gas or what? He'll still be alive right now if you niggas ain't gas him up.
Or rather, landed the killing blow on Gojo. So real quick, I want to kind of give a little bit of background information as far as Sukuna's power set. Now, Sukuna's innate technique is unknown, but it is implied that cleave and dismantle have something to do with it. Now, by the way, innate techniques are things like Todo's Boogie Woogie or Nobara's Straw Doll technique, or Reggie's ability with his receipts and all that good stuff. But something like Falling Blossom Emotion or Simple Domain and stuff like that, different barrier techniques, those aren't necessarily innate techniques. Those are things that people can just do. Any sorcerer can do with any level of mastery, varying. As far as cleave goes, cleave is a slashing attack that adjusts itself depending on the target's toughness and curse energy level to cut them down in one fell swoop. Then we also have dismantle. Dismantle is a default slashing attack that is normally used for inanimate objects. However, it can also be used against cursed spirits and sorcerers to great effectiveness. Now, Sukuna during his fight with Gojo never attempted to use cleave from what I could see, but he did use dismantle a whole bunch throughout the entire fight. Obviously, we have the slash attacks that he used on Gojo within his malevolent shrine. That was his guaranteed hit in that domain. But it's basically just kind of like an air slash, or he can try to just project where something is going to be cut, and it can be negated with infinity, or it looks like it appears just to bounce off of infinity, as we see with this one panel where when Sukuna fires it for the first time, it goes right above Gojo's head and he's kind of looking at it confused and a little scared, which actually I think is actually a slight foreshadowing into how Gojo actually died. For me personally, I don't really think that Gojo went into that fight not knowing that Sukuna had dismantle or cleave or something to do with cuts and stuff like that. I'm sure he could have gotten information from somewhere, at the very least Mei's crows, but when he looked at it, he looked shook. He looked like that thing could tear me apart if I'm not careful. Now granted, we do have this scene within Sukuna's malevolent shrine, and that he's getting torn to pieces, and then he's, oh, my reverse curse technique is overwhelmingly stronger. I'm good for the most part, right? But again, I just kind of want to point this out. This panel is also very interesting to me. We have to talk about Mahoraga. Now, Mahoraga itself was a very, very, very heavy factor in how this fight went. Mahoraga, as most Jujutsu Kaisen fans know, has the ability to adapt to any and all phenomena that it runs into. Sukuna was able to overwhelm Mahoraga within the Shibuya incident by using his malevolent shrine to relentlessly attack it with a bunch of cuts, and while it was regenerating from the cuts and attempting to adapt to the cuts, he then nuked it with a fire arrow, which also we still have no idea what that is. We still have no idea what the open ability is and all that kind of stuff. Now moving forward, next couple chapters, we might see a little bit of that. I'm not sure. So with all that precursor stuff out of the way, let's kind of talk about what kind of transpired here. So during the fight, Mahoraga was actually a pretty big deterrent for Gojo. Initially, he kind of wanted to avoid this thing at all costs, but then he resolved to kill it in one blow. Then Agito came out and a whole bunch of stuff ended up happening. It was a whole bunch of craziness. But the first thing Mahoraga did was adapt to Gojo's unlimited void, and he cut through it. Sukuna took the blow of Unlimited Void, but Mahoraga adapted to it since Sukuna had the wheel on him, so it worked out for him. But Sukuna's main goal with Mahoraga was to get Mahoraga to adapt to Gojo's Infinity, or Invulnerability. I have no idea why the Viz translation uses that word. It's a little confusing, but this was the make or break. Gojo's Infinity was the only thing that was keeping Gojo alive during this fight. And you can argue with me all day up and down, but I'm telling you, if Gojo did not have Infinity, infinity, he would be dead several times over within this fight. It's just how it works. So at one point, Mahoraga ended up getting goaded on by Sukuna. Sukuna was essentially like, hey, I need you to tap in. I need you to fucking do something. I'm kind of freaking out. He's got beaten my ass. So Mahoraga said, fuck it. You know what? I got you. Mahoraga got pissed and cut one of Gojo's arms off. By this point, Mahoraga was adapted to infinity. To Gojo. But by this point, Gojo decided, okay, that's fine. And so Gojo proceeded to take out Agito, and then he proceeded to nuke Sukuna as well as Mahoraga and himself within that hollow purple in Shingaku. And then as we move to the next chapter, we move into the flashback, and then we see that, oh, Gojo's dead. What happened? Now, a lot of people were confused. A lot of people initially thought that it was Mahoraga that gave the killing blow to Gojo, but no. It was Sukuna. Now, Sukuna proceeds to explain that Mahoraga's adaptation process slowly starts analyzing once it receives an initial attack and is complete after a certain amount of time. During that process, if it receives additional attacks, the completion time is sped up. Not only does it ensure adaptation of the first Jujutsu, but the analysis doesn't stop and the adaptation continues. This is the meat and potatoes of what happened to Gojo. Sukuna proceeds to explain that upon the second adaptation, which is what he was waiting for, he proceeded to cut the space or the very world where Gojo was lying in. Now we're gonna get into kind of abstract, almost like JoJo level of nonsense, so stay with me. So the first adaptation that Mahoraga had, it transmuted and nullified Gojo's infinity. Sukuna can't do that. Sukuna was basically using Mahoraga as a test dummy to see what he could and could not do in an attempt to deal with Gojo's infinity. I'm going to be real with you. I don't think that Sukuna expected Mahoraga to take out Gojo. I don't think so. It's just not in his character. And I really think that he was just kind of experimenting as much as he could because Gojo is such a problem. I mean, he was the now second strongest sorcerer in Jujutsu history, so why would he not try to do everything in his power to kind of feel him out, see what he can do? You know what I mean? So Sukuna proceeds to explain that as long as Gojo exists in a certain space or the very world itself, it can be cut. It is an extremely difficult ability to obtain, but Sukuna managed to level himself out and figure it out thanks to Mahoraga. So I'm going to attempt to simplify it here. So imagine you have a sheet of paper. Imagine you have a 2D space and you can draw Gojo, a little stick figure or whatever you want to do. You can attempt to draw arrows. You can attempt to like drop an anvil on Gojo on a piece of paper, but Gojo is still in this 2D space. You can't do anything because of his infinity. His infinity is basically this shield that is protecting him. But if you were to rip the sheet of paper, Gojo is gone because he exists on that sheet of paper. So yes, the very fabric and reality of the world of Jujutsu Kaisen was cut by Sukuna, and Gojo, was cut in half. Sukuna didn't land a cut on an XY coordinate. He hit everything from X to Y. Where Gojo was, that space is gone. Those atoms, all those neutrons, all that, gone. And because there's nothing to exist on, that's why Gojo was almost cut clean in half. So I'm not gonna say that Sukuna has reality warping powers, but I mean, it's kind of looking like that. Again, this kind of reminds me of D4C from JoJo, if you know what I'm talking about, kind of like the reality thing. Very, very, very cool ability that Sukuna has here. And I'm gonna be real with you, I don't know how the fuck our protagonists are gonna attempt to deal with this. Like, this is like an Avengers level threat at this point, bro. Like, he literally just healed himself, and they got his full body back. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have to pray to Tengen. We're gonna have to pray to Todo, something. So we gotta figure something out. Also, real quick, by the way, the reason that Sukuna did not use his four-armed form at the end or even in this initial Gojo fight was because if Gojo were to destroy his four-armed form, he wouldn't have a way to get it back. He could not regenerate it. Very interesting tidbit. We'll also, I think they'll be a little clear on the official translation on Sunday. But yeah, I just want to kind of explain this technique, explain how Sukuna is overwhelmingly busted. And yeah, Sukuna essentially cut the very reality that Gojo lied in, but not Gojo himself. But since Gojo exists in reality, he just got cut along with it. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe. And yeah, if you want more like technique breakdowns and stuff like that, please let me know down in the comments below. I would really appreciate the feedback. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.